Have you ever wondered why some people walk into a room and immediately command respect without saying a single word? There's something magnetic about them. You can't explain it, but you feel it. It's not confidence, not status, not even looks. It's presence, a quiet strength that makes people stop, notice, and think, who is that? What if I told you that this unshakable presence, this ability to be impossible to ignore, isn't about luck or genetics, but about 4 timeless Stoic habits that you can build starting today? These habits made emperors like Marcus Aurelius revered, philosophers like Seneca immortal, and slaves like Epictetus unforgettable. And when practiced in the modern world, a world full of noise, insecurity, and fake confidence, they turn you into something rare, someone grounded, calm, and powerful in silence. But here's the twist. Most people will never master these habits because they demand something society has almost forgotten: stillness. In this video, we're going to uncover the 4 Stoic habits that transform ordinary people into leaders, attractors, and forces of nature. But before we dive in, I want you to imagine something. Imagine you're standing in front of a mirror and everything you think you are, your job, your looks, your followers, your reputation, disappears. What's left? Who are you when all the noise fades? Because that's where Stoicism begins, not with what the world sees, but with what you can control inside. And once you master that inner battlefield, the outer world bends around you. Let's start with a story, one that few people know. It's about Marcus Aurelius, a man who ruled an empire yet lived like a monk. Every morning before dawn, he wrote in his private journal, not about war or politics, but about controlling his thoughts. "You have power over your mind, not outside events," he wrote. "Realize this, and you will find strength." Think about that. The most powerful man in the world reminding himself every day that he controls nothing but himself. Why? Because he knew that the person who masters their inner world becomes untouchable. While everyone else reacts, complains, or seeks validation, the Stoic remains unshaken. That is the first secret of presence, self-mastery. And yet the story doesn't end there, because mastering yourself is only one part of becoming impossible to ignore. The other 3 habits, which we'll uncover soon, take that inner strength and project it outward into the world. But before we get there, I want you to notice something strange about Marcus's words, something people miss. He wasn't writing those notes to teach others. He was writing to survive himself, to stay human in a chaotic world. And that's the real power of Stoicism. It's not theory, it's armor. Now here's the question I want you to hold on to as we continue. What would your life look like if you could walk through chaos completely calm? If criticism, failure, and even rejection couldn't move you? How differently would people treat you? That question is the open door, and by the end of this video, you'll not only understand it, you'll feel it. Because once you embody these 4 Stoic habits, people won't just notice you. They'll respect you, they'll listen to you, and they'll remember you long after you've left the room. Let's begin. The first Stoic habit that makes you impossible to ignore is the rarest skill in today's world: emotional control. Think about it. How many people around you truly stay calm when things go wrong? When insulted, rejected, or ignored, most people explode, argue, or spiral into self-doubt. But the Stoic, the one who stands apart, doesn't flinch. They remain centered, like a mountain unmoved by the storm. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." Those words are simple yet life-changing, because the moment you realize that no one can make you feel anything, not anger, not insecurity, not fear, you reclaim your power. Imagine walking through a world where nothing external can shake you. People can gossip,
betray or misunderstand you, but you remain steady. That kind of control doesn't go unnoticed. It radiates authority. People trust those who can stay calm when others panic. They follow those who don't lose themselves when the world loses its mind. But emotional control isn't about suppressing your feelings, it's about mastering them. Seneca said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And he was right. Most of our anger, anxiety, and fear come not from what's happening, but from the stories we tell ourselves about what's happening. You get criticized, and instantly your mind screams, "They don't respect me." You fail once, and it whispers, "You're not good enough." The Stoic habit is to pause, to insert a moment of awareness between stimulus and response. Epictetus taught his students that it's not what happens to you, but how you react that matters. So when life throws chaos your way, you take a breath. You observe the emotion rising within you, and you decide what to do with it. That pause is your power. It's in that split second that the Stoics separates themselves from the crowd, because while the average person reacts, the Stoic responds. To make this real, let's look at a modern example. Imagine a CEO under fire during a public scandal. Reporters shouting questions, investors panicking, employees afraid. One leader starts blaming others, yelling and melting down. The other stays composed, admits what needs to be fixed, and speaks with calm confidence. Which one do you respect more? Which one do you trust? The second leader isn't pretending to be calm. They've trained for it. They've built emotional muscle through discomfort, reflection, and discipline. That's Stoicism in action, and you can build it too. Start by noticing your triggers. Each time someone disrespects you, instead of reacting, ask, what's really being threatened, my ego or my values? When you begin observing instead of reacting, people will feel it. You'll become the one in control of the room, the one others can't easily provoke. And here's where the open loop deepens. Emotional control is just the foundation. It's what builds the quiet confidence that makes others respect you. But to make people feel your presence, to become truly unforgettable, you need the second Stoic habit, one that most people overlook entirely. It's what separates those who merely appear calm from those who command attention in silence. The next habit is not about how you feel, but how you move through the world. It's the key that made warriors, emperors, and thinkers radiate power without words. And once you understand it, you'll start to see it everywhere, in the way great men and women carry themselves, even when they say nothing.
If emotional control is the inner foundation, then disciplined presence is how that power appears to the world. This second Stoic habit is about how you show up, not in what you say, but in what people feel when you enter a space. Have you ever met someone who doesn't talk much, yet somehow everyone pays attention when they do? That's not charisma by accident. That's controlled energy, the ability to project calm focus instead of scattered anxiety. The Stoics mastered this long before psychologists gave it a name. Epictetus used to say, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it," because your presence, not your words, is what communicates who you are. Marcus Aurelius practiced this every day as emperor, in the Senate, in battle, in private conversations. People followed him not because he shouted or demanded respect, but because his very stillness made others want to listen. That is disciplined presence, the invisible force that commands a room without ever asking for it. In our world today, people are constantly overstimulated. Notifications, noise, and endless distractions have made focus one of the rarest traits. That's why when someone appears fully present,
When they listen deeply, move deliberately, and act with composure, they instantly stand out. Presence is magnetic because it's rare. Seneca once wrote that to be everywhere is to be nowhere. Most people are nowhere, mentally scattered, physically restless, and emotionally drained. But the Stoic moves with intention. They know that every gesture, every pause, every word is a reflection of their inner discipline. They don't rush to fill silence, they own it. They don't compete for attention, they attract it by not needing it. That's the paradox. The more you chase attention, the less you get. The more you detach from it, the more it finds you. True presence doesn't shout, it whispers confidence. Let's bring this to life with a modern example. Picture two people in a meeting. One is constantly fidgeting, checking their phone, interrupting others to prove a point. The other sits calmly, listening, speaking only when needed, and when they do, their words cut through the noise like a blade. Guess who leaves a lasting impression? That's the Stoic advantage in the modern world. While others are busy performing, you remain grounded. People can sense your self-possession. It creates a subtle authority. Psychologists call it status signals, but the Stoics knew it simply as virtue, self-command. And this kind of presence can't be faked for long. It comes from the daily discipline of mind and body. It's built in silence, through meditation, reflection, journaling, and mastery of habits. Every time you resist the urge to rush, to overreact, to prove yourself, you strengthen your presence. It's a practice of restraint and refinement. But there's something deeper here, a truth that Marcus hinted at in his journals but never fully explained. Presence isn't just about calmness, it's about purpose. When your actions are aligned with your values, your energy becomes coherent. It flows in one direction. That's why people who live with clarity seem powerful without trying. They know who they are and where they're going. And that brings us to the next Stoic habit, one that gives your presence direction and makes your energy unstoppable. It's what allowed the Stoics to endure exile, loss, and hardship without breaking. It's what transforms quiet strength into relentless momentum. The third Stoic habit is the discipline of purpose, the ability to live every day as if it were both your first and your last. Once you understand it, your focus sharpens, your confidence deepens, and your life begins to move with a rhythm that others can't help but notice.
The third Stoic habit that makes you impossible to ignore is unwavering purpose. Without purpose, emotional control and presence are just ornaments, impressive but hollow. Purpose is what turns stillness into strength, discipline into direction, and philosophy into power. The Stoics believed that every person has a duty, a role to play in the great play of the universe. Marcus Aurelius compared life to a stage, saying, "Whatever the role assigned to you, play it well." Epictetus, once a slave, echoed that same truth. Remember that you are an actor in a drama of such sort as the author chooses. That's what purpose meant to them, not waiting for a perfect destiny, but committing fully to the path in front of you. The Stoic doesn't drift. They move through life as if guided by an internal compass that never wavers, even when storms rage around them. People feel that energy. It's magnetic because it's rare. In a world of endless distraction, the person who knows what they stand for and where they're going immediately stands out. They become the anchor everyone looks to when others lose direction. But purpose isn't found in grand missions or external success. It's forged in daily discipline. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." That's the tragedy of modern life. Not that we don't have time, but that we scatter it on things that don't matter. The Stoic habit is to reclaim your hours, to live deliberately. Every morning, Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "You could leave life right now." Let that determine what you do and say and think. Imagine living with that clarity, knowing that time is finite, that every decision either strengthens or weakens your purpose. When you act with that kind of awareness, hesitation dies. Fear shrinks. You stop chasing everything and start mastering something. That's how purpose looks in motion, not as grand gestures, but as quiet consistency. Waking up early to write, to train, to build, even when no one's watching. Because you're not doing it for applause, you're doing it for alignment. And alignment is the deepest kind of peace. Let's bring this into the modern world. Picture two people at the start of their day. One wakes up and scrolls through their phone, reacting to everyone else's agenda. The other begins the day in silence, writing down 3 intentions aligned with their values. One drifts through distractions, the other moves through purpose. Guess which one people notice? The Stoic doesn't waste energy chasing trends or competing for validation. They channel their focus into what they can control: their craft, their mind, their conduct. That kind of consistency becomes visible over time. It's why Marcus Aurelius, despite being emperor, still wrote privately in his journal. He wasn't performing, he was practicing. Every day he was reminding himself of what mattered most: virtue, reason, and service. That's what gives a person presence, not ego, but direction. When you live with purpose, people feel it. It's in your tone, your posture, your decisions. You move differently because you know where you're going. But here's the paradox that few understand. The stronger your purpose becomes, the more resistance you face. The world doesn't reward clarity, it tests it. That's where the fourth and final Stoic habit comes in, the one that turns inner strength into unstoppable resilience. The Stoics called it amor fati, the love of fate. It's the ability to not just endure adversity, but to embrace it as part of your path. This final habit is what separates the ordinary from the extraordinary, the admired from the unforgettable. Because when you stop seeing obstacles as enemies and start seeing them as teachers, your entire life transforms. In the next section, we'll reveal how the Stoics used pain, rejection, and loss as fuel for greatness, and how you can do the same to become truly impossible to ignore.
The fourth Stoic habit, and perhaps the most powerful one, is amor fati, the love of fate. Not tolerance of fate, not acceptance of it, love. The Stoics believed that the mark of true wisdom is not just to endure hardship, but to welcome it as fuel for strength. Marcus Aurelius said, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." That's amor fati, turning every obstacle into energy. It's easy to be calm when life goes your way, but the Stoic becomes unshakable precisely because they expect chaos, and they choose to love it. This is where ordinary people crumble and Stoics ascend. Because when others ask, "Why me?" the Stoic whispers, "Try me." Imagine living like that. No fear of rejection, no resentment toward loss, no bitterness toward pain. You don't just survive your struggles, you transform them into the very thing that strengthens you. That mindset is magnetic. It makes people wonder how you stay composed when everything falls apart. But it's not magic, it's mastery. Seneca once said, "Fire tests gold, adversity tests brave men." And he knew what he was talking about. He faced exile, political disgrace, and betrayal by the emperor he once mentored. Yet he never saw these moments as tragedies. He saw them as opportunities to practice the virtues he preached: patience, courage, humility. Epictetus, too, was born a slave. He was beaten, broken, and denied freedom for years. But he used that suffering to understand one truth: no man is free who is not master of himself. When you look at their lives, you realize something profound. These men didn't just study Stoicism, they lived it through pain. And that's what made them immortal. Their struggles became their philosophy became their peace, and their peace became their power. The Stoic habit of amor fati isn't about blind optimism, it's about radical acceptance. It's looking at what life gives you and saying, "This too is mine to use." Now think about your own life. Every setback you've faced, heartbreak, failure, rejection, could have broken you, but it didn't. You're still here, which means you've already practiced amor fati without realizing it. The Stoic path simply asks you to do it consciously, to turn every "why me" into "thank you," to see every challenge as a forge for your strength. Imagine reframing every inconvenience into training, every loss into liberation, every pain into purpose. How unstoppable would you become? That's why people who embody amor fati are impossible to ignore, because when you can't be broken, you stop playing small, you stop fearing change, you stop clinging to comfort. You begin to radiate something rare, a quiet joy that comes from trusting life completely, no matter how unpredictable it gets. But there's one more layer to this, a truth hidden within the Stoic mindset that even many followers miss. The Stoics didn't just want to survive the storms of life, they wanted to become the calm within them. Amor fati is not just about loving what happens, it's about aligning yourself so deeply with reality that nothing feels out of place anymore. That's when you reach true inner peace, the kind of peace people can feel when they're around you. It's the invisible aura that makes you unforgettable. And when combined with the other three habits, emotional control, disciplined presence, and unwavering purpose, you become the kind of person who no longer needs to prove anything. The world begins to notice you not because you seek attention, but because your calm confidence becomes a mirror for what others wish they had. And yet, there's still one secret the Stoics hinted at, but never said outright. A truth that explains why these 4 habits work together so perfectly, and why mastering them can make you magnetic in a world full of noise. In the next section, we'll uncover that hidden Stoic principle, the one that transforms all 4 habits into a single unstoppable mindset. It's the difference between knowing Stoicism and living it.
Behind every Stoic habit lies one unshakable idea, the inner fortress. It's the invisible core every Stoic builds within themselves, brick by brick, through every test, every failure, and every act of discipline. Marcus Aurelius hinted at it when he wrote, "The mind adapts and converts to its own purposes the obstacle to our acting. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That's not just poetic, it's architectural. The Stoic doesn't run from hardship, they use it as building material. Every insult becomes a stone, every failure becomes mortar, and every act of courage adds another layer to their fortress. The result? An inner structure that no storm can collapse. That's why some people move through chaos with composure. They've already fortified themselves within. And when you develop this kind of mental architecture, the outside world starts to lose its power over you. You don't crumple under pressure. Pressure polishes you. You don't avoid discomfort, you invite it, because you know it's the only way to grow stronger. Seneca wrote that a gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials. The Stoic understood that life itself is training. Each difficulty is a chance to test your values, refine your patience, and deepen your resilience. The modern world sells comfort, but comfort weakens the walls of your fortress. That's why Stoics practiced voluntary discomfort, cold baths, simple meals, long periods of silence. They didn't do it to suffer, they did it to remember their strength. Imagine what would happen if you did the same, if, instead of avoiding pain, you trained for it. Every day, a little bit of voluntary hardship. Wake up earlier, speak less, do one thing that scares you. Each act strengthens the foundation of your inner fortress. You'll begin to notice something remarkable. The less you depend on external validation, the freer you become. People will sense it. They won't be able to define it, but they'll feel something unshakable in you, a calm power that doesn't rely on approval or applause. But here's what most people miss. Your inner fortress isn't made of walls to keep the world out. It's made of strength to let the world in without losing yourself. You can be calm without being cold, disciplined without being detached, powerful without being prideful. The Stoic isn't emotionless, they're emotionally anchored. They feel everything, but nothing drowns them. And that's why the inner fortress makes you impossible to ignore. When others lose control, you remain steady. When others panic, you guide. When others break, you bend, and then return stronger. People are drawn to that kind of grounded energy because it's rare in a society built on reaction. But this fortress isn't built overnight. It's built through choices, small, consistent choices that align with your highest self. Each time you choose discipline over comfort, patience over anger, action over complaint, you add another brick to your fortress. And over time, it becomes your greatest source of freedom. Yet, there's a paradox here. The stronger your fortress becomes, the more life will test it. The Stoics knew this and they welcomed it, because tests reveal weaknesses, and weaknesses are simply places where the walls need more reinforcement. Marcus wrote, "Don't wish for life to be easier, wish to be stronger." That's the essence of the Stoic mindset. The goal isn't to avoid storms, but to become the kind of person who isn't shaken by them. And when you live like that, people start to sense it. They start coming to you for guidance, even without you trying to lead. That's the hidden power of Stoicism, quiet leadership through example. But the Stoics didn't stop at inner strength. They used that strength to serve others, to lead wisely, and to live meaningfully. And that leads us to the next stage of this journey: how to use your inner fortress not just to protect yourself, but to influence the world around you with calm authority and moral clarity.
Once your inner fortress is built, the next Stoic evolution is learning how to lead through presence, not position. The world is filled with people who talk loudly, chase authority, and demand recognition. But true leaders rarely need to announce themselves. They lead through composure, clarity, and example. Marcus Aurelius ruled one of the largest empires in human history, yet his journals show no trace of arrogance. Instead, he constantly reminded himself, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." That's the Stoic philosophy of leadership. Don't preach, practice. Don't demand respect, embody it. The modern world confuses visibility with influence, but the Stoic knows better. Visibility attracts attention. Character earns devotion. You become impossible to ignore not by trying to stand out, but by standing firm in your values while the world trembles. This is what Seneca called quiet greatness, the ability to move with calm conviction in a sea of noise. Think about the leaders you truly admire, not the loudest voices, but the ones whose words carry weight because their actions never waver. They don't chase attention. They attract it by being trustworthy, consistent, and emotionally grounded. That's Stoic power in motion. Epictetus taught that if you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. In other words, the Stoic leader doesn't chase approval. They chase alignment. They know that integrity always outlasts popularity. In a world obsessed with validation, the person who no longer needs it becomes magnetic. Imagine being the one who never flinches under criticism, who doesn't need to explain themselves, who simply keeps moving forward. That steadiness is contagious. It inspires confidence without a single motivational speech. When others see that you cannot be shaken, not by praise, not by blame, they begin to respect you deeply, even if they can't articulate why. Let's bring this into real life. In any group, a team, a family, a friendship circle, people unconsciously seek the calmest person in the room. Not the loudest, not the funniest, not even the smartest. The calmest, because calm signals control, and control signals safety. That's why the Stoic leader becomes a natural center of gravity. Their emotional discipline radiates reliability. When chaos erupts, they don't add to the noise, they reduce it. They ask questions instead of shouting answers. They listen more than they speak. Over time, this builds a kind of invisible authority. People start coming to them for advice, not because they're perfect, but because they're stable. In a world where most people crumble under pressure, Stability is power. And that's the Stoic secret: to lead by being the calm in every storm. Marcus led armies with compassion. Seneca advised emperors with patience. Epictetus led students with humility. Their power wasn't dominance, it was example. But here's where this becomes truly profound. The Stoic leader's strength doesn't come from controlling others, it comes from mastering themselves. They don't manipulate, they model. And that makes their influence unstoppable, because it's built on authenticity. People may doubt your words, but they will always feel your energy. The Stoic leader's energy says, "I'm not here to impress you, I'm here to improve myself." And that message changes everyone around them. Yet this kind of silent power can't exist without one more trait, one that the Stoics believed was rarer than courage and even more vital than wisdom. It's authentic humility, the ability to stay grounded in the face of praise and centered in the face of criticism. Because the danger of power, even Stoic power, is ego. And if you don't master it, ego can quietly destroy everything you've built. In the next section, we'll uncover how the Stoics stayed humble, balanced, and respected, even when the world tried to worship them.
There's a danger that follows success, a silent enemy more destructive than failure. It's not fatigue, not fear, but ego. The Stoics knew that once a person gains control, respect, or recognition, the ego begins to whisper, "You've made it." And that whisper can destroy everything. That's why humility wasn't a weakness to the Stoics. It was a weapon, a safeguard against the corruption of the soul. Marcus Aurelius was emperor of Rome, yet he constantly reminded himself, "Soon you will have forgotten all things, and all things will have forgotten you." Think about that. The most powerful man on earth writing daily about his insignificance. He understood that humility wasn't about thinking less of himself, it was about thinking of himself less. True humility keeps you adaptable, teachable, and grounded. It keeps your inner fortress clean of arrogance, which is why the Stoic can grow endlessly. They never think they've arrived. Seneca warned that it is the power of the mind to be unconquerable. But that power disappears the moment pride takes over. Pride convinces you that you know enough, that you've mastered yourself, that others have nothing to teach you. The Stoic sees this as a trap. Life is constant training. Every situation, even the humiliating ones, contains lessons. That's why humility isn't passive, it's strategic. It's choosing to remain a student even when you could play the master. Epictetus, though revered as a philosopher, still referred to himself as a learner. He told his students, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought ignorant." To the Stoic, admitting you don't know something is strength, because pretending to know blocks growth, while humility opens new doors. And paradoxically, the person who isn't trying to appear wise ends up becoming genuinely wise, because their energy is focused on truth, not performance. In today's world, humility is often misunderstood. People think it means shrinking, hiding, or letting others walk over you. The Stoic rejects that false modesty. True humility isn't weakness, it's control. It's the ability to stay balanced, whether you're praised or criticized. When someone flatters you, you don't swell with pride. When someone insults you, you don't crumble. You remain the same. That stability, that refusal to be inflated or deflated by opinions, is what makes you impossible to manipulate. It's why Stoic humility is magnetic. People feel safe around it. They can sense that your confidence doesn't come from ego, but from integrity. And because you don't need to prove yourself, your presence naturally commands respect. In a society built on comparison, the person who stands confidently without competing becomes unforgettable. That's the paradox of humility. It makes you powerful,
precisely because you don't chase power. But there's a deeper reason humility matters. It protects your peace. Ego feeds on chaos. It constantly seeks validation, applause, and superiority. But humility is calm. It's rooted in reality. It accepts imperfections and moves forward. When Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal and political chaos, he reminded himself that people act according to their nature, not to hurt him personally. That perspective freed him from resentment, another form of ego. The Stoic knows that humility isn't just about how you see yourself, it's also about how you see others. You begin to understand that every person you meet, even the ones who test your patience, are teachers in disguise. And that brings us to the next layer of Stoic mastery, emotional intelligence. Because while humility keeps your ego grounded, emotional intelligence helps you navigate relationships without losing your inner balance. In the next section, we'll uncover how Stoics used emotional awareness not to control others, but to master connection, a skill that makes your calm presence magnetic in every room you enter.
In a world addicted to reaction, emotional control is a superpower. But here's the paradox. Stoic emotional control isn't about being emotionless, it's about being unshakable. The Stoic doesn't suppress emotion, they understand it, translate it, and use it wisely. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Those words hold a truth deeper than most people realize, because if you can't control your reactions, someone else controls you. Think about the last time someone pushed your buttons. Maybe a boss disrespected you, a friend disappointed you, or someone online insulted you. In that split second, you had two choices: to react emotionally or to respond rationally. The Stoic always chooses the second, not because they don't feel, but because they've mastered the art of choosing their response. Emotional intelligence in Stoicism isn't about being emotionless, it's about being unshakable. The Stoic doesn't suppress emotion, they understand it, translate it, and use it wisely. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Those words hold a truth deeper than most people realize, because if you can't control your reactions, someone else controls you. Think about the last time someone pushed your buttons. Maybe a boss disrespected you, a friend disappointed you, or someone online insulted you. In that split second, you had two choices: to react emotionally or to respond rationally. The Stoic always chooses the second, not because they don't feel, but because they've mastered the art of choosing their response. Emotional intelligence in Stoicism is not about detachment from people, it's about detachment from impulsive emotions. Marcus Aurelius understood this in the chaos of Rome's political world. Surrounded by flattery, betrayal, and manipulation, he wrote in Meditations, "When someone does you wrong, blame their ignorance, not their intent." That wasn't a weak acceptance, it was psychological mastery. Marcus realized most people act from emotion, habit, and fear, not from malice. So instead of wasting energy on resentment, he focused on understanding. That understanding is emotional intelligence at its highest level. It's not being soft, it's being strategic. When you see the emotional roots behind someone's behavior, you stop taking things personally. And that's when you gain power. The person who can't be provoked is the person who controls every room they enter. Emotional composure is magnetic. It silently tells the world, "I'm not here to react, I'm here to lead." Seneca took this further. He believed that anger, jealousy, and envy are self-inflicted wounds, emotions that destroy the host before they touch the target. He wrote, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." That small pause, that breath, is where the Stoic wins. Because in that space between stimulus and response lies your freedom. Imagine living like that. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and instead of rage, you feel perspective. A coworker spreads rumors, and instead of revenge, you feel clarity. That's not indifference, it's wisdom. Stoics practiced what modern psychology now calls emotional regulation centuries before science caught up. They rehearsed worst-case scenarios,
observed their triggers, and reminded themselves that emotions are natural, but they don't have to be masters. Epictetus said, "When you are offended at any man's fault, turn to yourself and study your own failings. Then you will forget your anger." That self-reflection transforms irritation into insight. Here's where the modern lesson lies. Emotional intelligence doesn't just make you calm, it makes you irresistibly influential. People are drawn to those who don't react impulsively. They trust them. They follow them. In relationships, the Stoic habit of emotional awareness prevents unnecessary conflict. You learn to listen without ego, to disagree without hostility, to love without attachment. You become the rare kind of person who doesn't need to dominate a conversation to be heard. Your silence carries authority. The Stoic knows that understanding emotion doesn't weaken you. It strengthens your connection to the world. When you learn to guide emotions instead of being guided by them, you unlock the highest form of power, presence. And this brings us to the next Stoic habit, perhaps the most misunderstood of all, solitude. Because to command your emotions in the world, you must first learn to command your thoughts in silence. In the next section, we explore how Stoics used solitude not as isolation, but as transformation, the secret forge where mental resilience and clarity are built. Most people today fear being alone. They fill every quiet moment with noise, music, scrolling, texting, distractions, anything to escape the silence. But the Stoics, they ran toward it. To them, solitude was not emptiness, it was alchemy. It was the place where the mind forged clarity, where emotions reset, and where identity was purified of external influence. Marcus Aurelius often retreated from the chaos of the Roman court to sit in stillness, writing, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." He wasn't escaping the world, he was sharpening himself to re-enter it stronger. Stoic solitude is not about withdrawal, it's about reconnection, stripping away noise until only truth remains. Because until you can be alone with your thoughts, you're not truly free. You're just constantly distracted from yourself. Seneca called solitude medicine for the soul. He advised his students to practice it regularly, not as punishment, but as discipline. He wrote, "Associate with people who are likely to improve you, and welcome those whom you are capable of improving. The process is mutual." But Seneca added something crucial. Retire into yourself as much as you can. Why? Because solitude reveals who you really are when no one's watching. Without the masks, without performance, without validation, you meet your raw self. And that meeting is uncomfortable. That's why most people avoid it. But the Stoic embraces discomfort as training. Sitting in silence with your own mind forces you to face truths you've ignored, fears, regrets, attachments, false desires. It's in that confrontation that transformation begins. Solitude is not loneliness, it's mental cleansing. It removes the world's dust from your thoughts. It's where you stop being defined by others and start defining yourself. Epictetus taught his followers that no one is free who is not master of themselves. Solitude to him was the testing ground for mastery. In solitude, there's no audience to impress, no crowd to applaud you. There's only your conscience, your internal judge. The Stoics believe that if you can stand peacefully in your own company, you've already achieved a kind of victory most people never will. Modern life has made this rare. Constant stimulation keeps you dependent on noise. The Stoic path reverses that. It teaches you to create pockets of stillness daily, even a few minutes of undisturbed thought. Marcus called these moments inner citadels. Within them, he could return to reason and perspective, no matter how chaotic Rome became. Today, your citadel might be a morning walk without your phone, an hour of journaling, or even a few deep breaths between notifications. The power lies not in escaping the world, but in mastering your presence within it. Here's the paradox. The more comfortable you become in solitude, the more magnetic you become socially. People can sense when your confidence doesn't rely on attention. When you don't chase company, you become the kind of person everyone wants to be around. Stoic solitude breeds quiet authority. It's the reason why some people can walk into a room and command attention without saying a word. Their energy is grounded, self-sufficient, and untouchable.
They've built themselves in silence, and silence leaves fingerprints of strength. But solitude has another gift too. It refines your focus. When you spend time away from distractions, you see your priorities clearly. You begin to distinguish what truly matters from what's just noise. And that leads us into the next Stoic habit, focus and simplicity. Because once you've tamed your inner chaos, you must learn to cut through the world's chaos, to remove everything unnecessary so your energy is fully directed to what's essential.
The Stoics lived in noisy times too. Wars, politics, betrayal, ambition. Yet they achieved a clarity of purpose that most modern minds have lost. Their secret was focus through simplicity. To the Stoic, the most powerful person isn't the one who does the most, it's the one who wastes the least. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you seek tranquility, do less." But he didn't mean laziness, he meant concentration. The Stoic trims the unnecessary until only what truly matters remains. Seneca said it even more sharply. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. Those words sting because they're still true 2,000 years later. Every day, people scatter their attention across dozens of tasks, chasing novelty, multitasking, consuming endlessly, and in doing so, they drain their power. The Stoic knows that focus isn't about doing more. It's about choosing one worthy thing and doing it with full presence. Think about a sword. It's powerful not because it has many edges, but because its energy is concentrated to a single point. That's how Stoic discipline works. Marcus Aurelius, even as emperor, followed strict routines. He woke before dawn, reflected, wrote, planned, and acted deliberately. He didn't allow himself to drift. His life was guided by the question, is this essential? That one question cut through distractions like a blade. The Stoic habit of simplicity removes clutter, both physical and mental, so the mind can operate freely. Epictetus warned that when a man is diverted from his purpose, he suffers. And that's the silent suffering most people live with today. Distraction disguised as productivity. The Stoic antidote is ruthless prioritization. Decide what truly aligns with your principles and purpose, and then eliminate everything else. That's not minimalism for aesthetics, it's minimalism for power. In practice, this means living intentionally. The Stoic doesn't say yes to every invitation, every trend, every opinion. They protect their time like it's sacred, because it is. Every yes you give without thought steals energy from your true path. Seneca compared this to being robbed, not by thieves, but by our own carelessness. He said, "People are frugal in guarding their personal property, but as soon as it comes to squandering time, they are most wasteful of the one thing in which it is right to be stingy." The Stoic habit of focus transforms you into a force of nature because it channels your limited energy into meaningful action. When you do fewer things with greater intention, your results compound. You start finishing what you begin. You stop drifting from one desire to another. Simplicity becomes a competitive advantage. While others burn out chasing everything, you advance quietly in one direction, unstoppable. And here's the paradox again. Simplicity creates complexity of impact. The person who seems to do less often achieves more because their efforts are pure, undiluted, and sustained. Modern Stoicism demands the courage to be selective, to say no to noise, to walk away from what doesn't serve your growth, and to focus so sharply that mediocrity can't survive near you. That's how you become impossible to ignore, not by chasing attention, but by creating undeniable results. But even focus, the Stoics knew, isn't enough without discipline, the muscle that holds every principle together. Discipline is where Stoic philosophy leaves the pages of books and enters real life. It's what turns wisdom into power, thought into action, and dreams into reality. In the next section, we'll unlock how the Stoics built their legendary self-discipline and how you can use the same process to build a life that commands respect effortlessly. If there's one quality that separates the ordinary from the unstoppable, it's discipline. To the Stoics, discipline wasn't about punishment or restriction, it was liberation. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And that's the essence of Stoic power. While most people are enslaved by impulses, moods, and desires, the Stoic learns to command them. Discipline is self-respect in action. It's the quiet agreement between who you are and who you want to be, kept every day through small, consistent choices. Marcus Aurelius didn't preach discipline from comfort, he lived it in chaos. As emperor, he faced endless distractions, luxury, praise, crisis. Yet each morning he wrote reminders to himself, "When you wake up, tell yourself, today I will meet the ungrateful, the arrogant, the deceitful. Still, I will not let them disturb my peace." That was discipline. Emotional, mental, and moral discipline. A daily training of the soul to remain steady no matter the storm. Seneca viewed discipline as a craft, not a constraint. He advised that no man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity. Why? Because comfort breeds weakness. The Stoics practiced what they called voluntary discomfort. Cold baths, simple meals, sleeping on the floor. Not to suffer, but to strengthen their minds. They believed the body obeys the mind that has practiced command over itself. If you can choose discomfort when it's optional, you won't collapse when it's forced upon you. Discipline to them was preparation for temptation, for loss, for success. Seneca reminded his students, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." Each disciplined act, rising early, controlling your tongue, resisting indulgence, built mental armor. The Stoic didn't see self-denial as deprivation. They saw it as freedom from dependence. And that's the paradox. The more disciplined you become, the freer you are. Epictetus taught his followers a method that modern psychology now calls implementation intention. He would tell them, decide in advance how you will act when tested. When something happens, remember, it is not the thing itself that troubles you, but your opinion about it. This premeditation trained them to respond, not react. Discipline wasn't just about routines, it was about rehearsing resilience. The Stoic built habits that made good decisions automatic. That's why their strength looked effortless, because they had trained it into instinct. Marcus Aurelius didn't need to find willpower each morning. His routine was willpower in motion. In our modern world, filled with distractions designed to hijack attention, Stoic discipline becomes revolutionary. It's not about motivation. Motivation fades. Discipline remains. Motivation asks, do I feel like it? Discipline answers, it doesn't matter. That mindset alone separates those who talk from those who achieve. But discipline has another dimension, the one that makes the Stoic truly magnetic. When you live with discipline, people sense it. It's in your posture, your words, your consistency. You become someone others can rely on, someone who keeps promises, not because of external pressure, but because of inner principle. That reliability is rare, and rarity commands respect. The Stoic doesn't demand respect, they embody it. Their discipline speaks louder than any performance, and that's what makes them impossible to ignore. But there's one final evolution of discipline: resilience. The Stoic's ability to stay calm and unbroken under pressure. Because while discipline builds control, resilience reveals it. In the next section, we'll explore how Stoics trained their minds to remain unshaken through failure, loss, and chaos, turning pain into progress and adversity into strength.